How do children become Space Marines? Every Space Marine was once a screaming child strapped to a surgical table. Not volunteers, not adults making informed choices. Children. Some as young as 10 years old, ripped from their families and subjected to horrors that would make the Inquisition wince. The Imperium's greatest warriors, its demigod defenders, its 8-foot-tall angels of death. Every single one of them began their journey in agony, and most of them died before it even truly started. This is the truth the recruitment posters never show. Picture a fortress monastery carved into the side of a dead moon. Cold stone corridors that have witnessed 10,000 years of screaming. Somewhere, deep inside, past the reliquaries and the prayer halls and the endless rows of battle honors, there is a room that smells like blood and antiseptic. The walls are lined with surgical equipment that would look more at home in a torture chamber. And on the table, held down by ceramite restraints, lies a boy who still remembers his mother's face. He will not remember it for much longer. The Imperium of man spans 1,000,000 worlds. 1,000,000 worlds burning in eternal warfare against threats that would drive lesser civilizations to extinction. Orcs, Tyranids, the endless legions of chaos. And standing between humanity and complete annihilation are the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, genetically modified super soldiers encased in powered armor, capable of fighting for days without rest, surviving wounds that would kill a normal human 10 times over. They are humanity's greatest weapon, and they are forged from stolen children. Here is the fundamental paradox that defines everything about Space Marine creation. Humanity's greatest protectors are manufactured through humanity's greatest cruelties. The process of making a Space Marine is so horrific, so agonizing, and so frequently fatal that it would qualify as the worst kind of torture in any civilized society. But the Imperium is not a civilized society. The Imperium is a rotting empire, held together by faith and fear and the endless sacrifice of its own people. And it needs these monsters. It needs them desperately. The key to everything is gene seed, sacred biological material harvested from the Emperor's own sons, the Primarchs, 20 demigod generals who led humanity's armies during the Great Crusade. Each Space Marine chapter traces its genetic lineage back to one of these legendary figures. The gene seed carries their legacy, their strength, their potential for transcendence. Without gene seed, a child remains merely a child. With it, he has perhaps a 1 in 100 chance of becoming something beyond human. 1 in 100. Think about that number. For every Space Marine standing in gleaming ceramite armor, 99 children died screaming in surgical pods. Their bodies rejected the impossible changes being forced upon them. Their hearts exploded. Their bones grew wrong. Their minds shattered under the weight of transformation. The gene seed is both gift and curse, the key to transcendence and the instrument of unspeakable suffering. What follows in this examination is a journey through 3 phases of horror. Selection, where children are hunted and harvested from across the galaxy. Transformation, where 19 organs are surgically implanted into adolescent bodies over years of continuous agony. And indoctrination, where everything the child once was gets systematically erased and replaced with the psychology of a weapon. Each phase is more terrible than the last. Each phase claims more lives than any battlefield. The mathematics are staggering. For every chapter of 1,000 battle brothers, hundreds of thousands of children have been processed through the system. Multiply that across more than 1,000 chapters spread throughout the galaxy. The number of children who have died in pursuit of creating Space Marines enters the hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions of boys, sons, brothers, children who laughed and played and dreamed of futures they would never see. The boy who enters the fortress monastery and the Astartes, who eventually emerges, share genetic material and nothing else. Not memories, not emotions, not humanity. The transformation is not an enhancement. It is not an upgrade. It is an annihilation. The complete and systematic destruction of a human being so that a weapon can be built from the remains. And every single Space Marine considers this a blessing. The process begins not in a sterile laboratory, but in the hunting grounds. Before any surgery, before any organ is implanted, the chapters must first harvest their raw material. They are hunting for children, and the methods they employ are as varied and brutal as the chapters themselves. On a death world like Fenris, home of the Space Wolves, there is no recruitment drive. The planet itself is the selection mechanism. It is a frozen hellscape of constant blizzards and volcanic upheaval, stalked by monstrous predators that could swallow a tank. Here, boys must learn to kill to survive. They hunt ice krakens on shifting floes and fight territorial wars against rival tribes under a sky of pale, twin suns. The Space Wolf recruiters, the Wolf Priests, do not announce themselves. They watch from the shadows of glacial ridges, observing hunts and skirmishes, their enhanced eyes searching for something more than mere survival instinct. They seek a spark of primal ferocity, a glorious savagery that transcends desperation. When they find a candidate, a boy who single-handedly fells a Fenrisian wolf or leads a charge that breaks a rival clan, they simply take him. Sometimes it's a direct abduction from a sleeping village. Other times, they stage an elaborate hunt where the boy is the quarry. His tribe might find tracks leading to a cave littered with monster bones and believe he was devoured. They would be half right. Contrast this with the sprawling, vertical nightmare of a hive world. In the toxic gloom of an underhive, where billions of souls live and die in crushing poverty, chapters like the Imperial Fists find their aspirants. Here, violence is the air you breathe. Children learn to kill before they learn to read, fighting in vicious gangs for territory, food, or simply the right to see another cycle. Chaplains and apothecaries descend into this urban abyss, disguised as itinerant preachers or black market medici. They watch the gang wars from rusted gantries, seeking not just savagery, but controlled brutality. They look for the boy who organizes an ambush, the one who shows tactical acumen, the one who holds the line when everyone else breaks. Some chapters, less inclined toward subtlety, establish fighting pits, gladiatorial arenas where children, some barely in their teens, murder each other with scavenged chain blades and sharpened rebar for the prize of a full meal and the possibility of being chosen. Once these potential aspirants are identified, their true test begins. The trials. These are not standardized exams. They are bespoke ordeals designed to kill the weak and reveal the strong, each reflecting the character of the chapter. The Blood Angels force their aspirants to cross the irradiated deserts of Bile Secundus without water, a journey that kills most through dehydration and radiation poisoning, but more importantly, tests their nascent psychic resistance to the genetic curse of their bloodline. The Dark Angels subject their candidates to psychological torments, locking them in sensory deprivation chambers where they are forced to confront their deepest fears, a process that breaks the minds of most before their bodies are ever touched. And the Iron Hands, ever pragmatic, demand that aspirants endure and function through agony. A boy might have his arm deliberately broken and then be ordered to field strip a bolt gun. If the pain overwhelms him, he is a failure. Those who cannot master their own flesh are worthless. These trials are a filter of breathtaking lethality. They claim more lives than any subsequent stage of the transformation. For every 100 boys who begin, perhaps 10 survive to face the surgical tables. The chapters do not view this as cruelty. It is efficiency. Better to lose a child in a trial of fire and blood than to waste a single drop of precious, irreplaceable gene seed on a body that would inevitably reject it. And what of the families left behind? The mothers on a hive world who never learn why their sons vanished, assuming they fell to gang violence or the enforcers. The fathers on a feral world who mourn a child they believe was lost to the wilderness. Some chapters maintain elaborate deceptions. Others simply take what they want and offer no explanation, no apology. The Imperium's need for warriors supersedes all parental rights, all family bonds, all human attachment. The harvest is everything. The son is nothing. The handful of boys who survive the trials are brought to the chapter's fortress monastery, and in the shadow of its impossible architecture, they immediately discover their ordeal has only just begun. The gates grind shut behind them, a sound of absolute finality, sealing them off from a world they will never see again. Any camaraderie forged in the crucible of selection is instantly shattered. They are separated, isolated, and the systematic stripping of self begins. Their names are the first things taken. A boy who was called Kyle by his mother is now aspirant 734. A boy who led his gang is now simply a number on a slate. Their clothes, rags caked with the dirt and blood of their trials, are torn from their bodies and incinerated. Any personal trinket, a carved bone, a lucky stone, anything that connects them to a past life, is confiscated and destroyed before their eyes. Their heads are shorn with cold, impersonal shears, leaving them identical and anonymous. They are given rough, scratchy robes of a uniform gray, the fabric abrasive against skin still healing from wounds. The chapter is not training individuals, it is manufacturing weapons, and the first step is to erase the person who arrived. They are herded into initiation chambers, Spartan cells of bare stone, designed to offer no comfort, no solace. The bunks are hard slabs. The air is cold and smells of ozone and old incense. Sleep is a rationed commodity, limited to a few hours at a time, often interrupted by blaring klaxons for the next phase of their preparation. The food they are given is a flavorless, gray nutrient paste, scientifically precise in its composition to build muscle and bone, but utterly devoid of any pleasure. Physical conditioning starts on the first day. It is a regimen of such brutal intensity that it would destroy a normal adult. They are forced to run until their lungs burn with fire, lift weights that tear their muscles, and fight each other with weighted staves until someone can no longer stand. Those who collapse from exhaustion are sometimes left where they fall, a lesson to the others. Those whose bodies break under the strain, whose hearts simply give out, are removed without ceremony. Their designation number is struck from the roster, and they are forgotten. While their bodies are being broken and remade, their minds are under assault. The chapter's chaplains begin the long, slow process of psychological demolition. Aspirants are strapped into hypnothrones for days at a time, their eyelids clamped open as millennia of chapter history, catechisms of hate, and litanies of duty are burned directly into their brains. They are forced to recite these doctrines until their throats are raw and bleeding. They are made to witness the glory and the horror of their future through recorded battle logs that feel as visceral and real as memory. The phantom sensation of a chainsword chewing through Xeno's flesh, becoming more familiar than their own mother's face. But perhaps the cruelest part of this phase is the waiting. The aspirants know something terrible is coming. They can hear it. Faint screams echo down the stone corridors from the sealed sector of the fortress, known as the Apothecarian. They see older neophytes, their bodies convulsing, being carried past on grav stretchers. They glimpse robed servitors, removing motionless forms wrapped in stained canvas. Yet they are told nothing. This deliberate cultivation of dread is another test, one designed to identify those whose minds will crack under pressure. The few boys who break, who try to flee, are not recaptured. They are hunted. Full Battle Brothers use them as live-fire training exercises, a final, fatal lesson on the impossibility of escape. Before the summons comes, many chapters perform a final ritual. The aspirants are brought before a chaplain and presented with a chalice. It contains the blood of the chapter's heroes, a sacrament connecting them to the legacy they are about to inherit. For some, like the Blood Angels, this ritual is another deadly filter. The blood itself carries the genetic echo of their Primarch, and drinking it can trigger violent, fatal rejections before a single scalpel has touched them. Those who survive the ritual are marked, their bodies now nominally prepared. Then, one day, the silence of their cell is broken. A servo skull hovers in the doorway, its voice a dead metallic rasp. It speaks their number. It is time. The aspirant rises, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs, and walks toward the apothecarion, knowing with cold certainty that the boy who enters those doors will not be the one who emerges. He will either be transformed, or he will not emerge at all. The aspirant is strapped to a surgical slab of stained, cold steel. The air in the apothecarion is thick with the scent of sterilizing agents, hot metal, and blood. Above him, articulated servo arms tipped with saws, drills, and scalpels hang like metallic spiders, waiting. An apothecary, a giant in white ceramide armor stained with the fluids of 100 previous boys, makes final adjustments to a nutrient drip. There is no gentleness in his movements, only a terrifying, practiced efficiency. This is not a place of healing. This is a forge, and the boy is the raw, screaming metal. The first implantation is the secondary heart. Full anesthesia is a luxury the chapter cannot afford. The apothecaries must monitor the body's authentic shock and integration process. The boy is kept in a state of semi-conscious, paralytic terror. He feels the cold bite of the saw as it grinds through his sternum, the horrific crack and splinter of his own ribcage being pried open. The apothecary reaches into the exposed cavity and, with a series of precise, brutal motions, grafts the new organ beside the boy's original, frantically beating heart. The connection is made. For an agonizing moment, there is chaos in his chest. Two hearts, one biological and one bioengineered, fight for rhythm. One pounds in sheer terror, the other with a steady synthetic pulse. The boy's body convulses on the slab, his vision whites out, the pain a supernova in his torso. If his body rejects this first, most fundamental gift, he will die right here, his own heart tearing itself apart. As the twin pulses begin to awkwardly synchronize, the apothecary moves on. He implants the os modula, a small gland-like device that nestles near the pituitary gland. It begins to secrete powerful hormones, and a new kind of agony begins. This is not the sharp trauma of the knife, but a deep, grinding, architectural pain. His very skeleton is being rewritten. Over the coming weeks and months, his bones will lengthen, thicken, and fuse with ceramite-like density. The growth spurts of a normal adolescent are a gentle ache by comparison. This is the feeling of your own frame being broken and recast from the inside out, every day, every hour. Some aspirants' skeletons grow wrong, joints fuse solid, bone spurs erupt from their spines, piercing muscle and organs from within. They become living, screaming monuments to failure, their twisted bodies preserved in medicastasis tanks as a warning. Working in concert with the os modula is the biscopeia. Implanted deep within the chest, It floods the body with hypersteroids, forcing muscle to grow at an impossible rate. The aspirant's body begins to bulk, his frame straining under the sudden addition of mass. His skin stretches taut, threatening to tear. The strain on his still-developing cardiovascular system is immense. His original heart would have exploded weeks ago. Only the addition of the secondary heart allows him to survive this phase, the two organs now working in a desperate, pounding tandem to pump enough blood to the ravenous, expanding muscle tissue. Malfunctions are catastrophic. Runaway growth can literally rip a boy's body apart, his own strength becoming the instrument of his death. The fourth foundational organ, the haemastamen, is then inserted into a major blood vessel. This tiny implant begins the excruciating process of transforming his blood. His bone marrow goes into overdrive, churning out new cells that are darker, richer, and far more efficient at carrying oxygen. His blood chemistry is rewritten to clot faster and fight infection with superhuman aggression. For the aspirant, it feels like his veins are filled with acid. He is racked with fevers that would kill a normal human. As his old blood is purged, he bleeds from his eyes, his nose, his gums, a constant horrifying reminder of the war being waged within his own body. Some suffer strokes or embolisms as the newly aggressive blood forms clots in their brains or lungs, ending their journey in a silent, twitching death. These are just the first 4 of 19, and they are the deadliest. Of every 10 boys strapped to these tables for Phase 1 implantation, 4 will not survive. 40%. Their bodies reject the gene seed, their immune systems attack the new organs, or the sheer cumulative trauma simply snuffs out their lives. The apothecary feels no grief at these losses. He records the data. He notes the specific point of organ rejection, the nature of the cascading biological failure. Then, the body is removed, harvested for any viable tissue or salvageable progenoid precursors, and a servo skull is dispatched to the initiation chambers to summon the next number. The forge must remain lit. The aspirants who survive the foundational agonies are no longer the children who were dragged from their homes. They are now hulking adolescents, their bodies warped by forced growth, their days and nights a seamless tapestry of pain. They are typically between 12 and 16 years old, and for them, the transformation deepens, spiraling into the truly alien. The next phase begins not with a promise of strength, but with a test of resilience. An apothecary straps the aspirant down. He takes a scalpel, not to implant, but to cut. He carves a deep, clean gash into the boy's arm. This is the test for the Laramann's organ, a liver-like implant that manufactures specialized cells. As the aspirant's blood, now dark and thick, spills onto the steel slab, it congeals almost instantly, turning into a rubbery, black scab before it can even form a puddle. The wound is sealed. The apothecary nods, records the clotting time, and then makes another cut. And another. The aspirant is deliberately and systematically wounded, his body a living ledger for the apothecary to check his work. Those whose Laramann's organ is sluggish, whose blood still flows too freely, are deemed a waste of gene seed. They are not patched up. Next comes a horror reserved for the conscious mind. The catalepsian node, the organ that will one day allow a Marine to sleep with half his brain while the other remains active, must be implanted directly into the cerebrum. The aspirant's skull is clamped, his head shorn and sterilized. He is awake. He must be. An unconscious brain cannot report the subtle errors that could mean the difference between a functional soldier and a drooling lunatic. He hears the high-pitched whine of the bone saw as it carves a circle in his skull. He feels the pressure, the vibration rattling through his teeth, but no pain, thanks to local nerve dampeners. The worst part is the wet, squelching sound as the apothecary's tools probe the delicate tissue of his mind, attaching the node to his brainstem. Many aspirants break here, their minds, unable to process the physical violation of their own consciousness, simply shatter. They scream until their throats are raw, their sanity bleeding out onto the operating table. Those who survive the procedure often endure weeks of waking nightmares and terrifying hallucinations as their neurology violently rewires itself around the alien hardware. Then, the digestive system is remade. The preamnor, a pre-stomach, is grafted into the aspirant's torso. This organ will allow him to eat nearly anything: poisonous fungi, raw flesh, cellulose, and derive nourishment. But its installation is a campaign of internal misery. The boy's original digestive tract is essentially shut down, a process that induces weeks of violent, convulsive sickness. Unable to eat, he is fed by nutrient tubes snaked directly into his major arteries. He feels a constant, churning nausea as his body fights the new organ. For some, the fight is lost. A malfunctioning preamnor can fail to recognize its host and begins to do what it was designed to do: digest. It starts with the surrounding tissue, turning the aspirant's own insides into a corrosive slurry. They are eaten alive from within. Perhaps the most soul-destroying implant is the omophageia, the remembrancer. Sunk deep into the spinal cord, it allows a space marine to absorb the memories of a creature by consuming its flesh. To test it, the apothecaries bring the aspirant carefully prepared samples: the raw brain of a captured Xenos, the heart of a disciplined guardsman. He's forced to eat. Later, strapped to an interrogation slate, a chaplain will ask him questions he couldn't possibly know the answers to. Describe the spawning pools of your homeworld. Recite the third stanza of the Litany of Sacrifice. If the alien memories or the dead man's prayers surface in the aspirant's mind, the organ is a success. The boy is now a cannibal who carries the ghosts of his meals inside his head. Finally, the multi-lung. A third, tubular lung is collapsed and inserted into the chest cavity. Its installation requires the temporary, controlled deflation of the aspirant's original 2 lungs. For several minutes, he is clinically dead, unable to breathe. But he is not unconscious. He experiences the pure, primal terror of drowning on a dry table, his body convulsing, his mind screaming for air that will not come, all while the apothecaries calmly suture the new organ into place. By now, the aspirant has been in a state of near-continuous agony for years. His face is a hard, brutalist mask. He has seen his peers die in every way imaginable. The boy he once was is a faint echo, a ghost haunting a body that is no longer his. The transformation is not just changing him, it is erasing him. The aspirant is now a man in size, but not in age. Typically somewhere between 14 and 18, he has survived years of torment that have chiseled away his youth, replacing it with scarred muscle and calcified bone. He is a veteran of the surgical slab, but the work is not finished. The final phase of implantation begins, adding the last esoteric pieces of hardware that will complete the Emperor's angel. First, his senses are broken and remade. The oculobe, a hormonal pump grafted to the brain, begins its work. The aspirant feels a constant grinding fire behind his eyes as his optical structure is forcibly evolved. His rods and cones multiply, reconfiguring themselves for superior low-light vision. During the weeks-long transition, his sight is a chaotic mess. He sees impossible colors bleeding into the gray stone of his cell, suffers from temporary blindness, and experiences searing pain with every flicker of light. Just as the fire in his eyes begins to fade, the apothecaries move to his ears. For the Lyman's ear implant, they don't just augment, they destroy and rebuild. The delicate structures of his inner ear are surgically obliterated and then regrown into a new form, one that grants perfect balance and the ability to filter sound. For weeks, the aspirant is trapped in a world of absolute silence, his new eyes the only link to the world as he endures yet another round of agonizing isolation. Next come the organs of impossible survival. To test the Susan membrane, a small organ that can place a Marine in suspended animation upon receiving a mortal wound, the aspirant is brought to the brink of death. An apothecary inflicts a wound calculated to be fatal, then steps back and observes with a chronometer. Does the membrane activate? Does the aspirant's body enter self-preserving stasis? If it does, he is revived, and the test is a success. If it fails, he simply dies. Another failed experiment on a long, long list. The same brutal logic applies to the mucranoid, a chemical gland that lets a Marine secrete a waxy protein to seal his skin against hard vacuum. The test is simple. The aspirant is thrown into a vacuum chamber. If the gland works, he survives the explosive decompression and suffocating void. If it doesn't, his death is a data point. A rapid-fire series of lesser, but no less invasive surgeries follows. The melanochrome is implanted to control skin pigmentation for radiation resistance. The oolitic kidney is added to his renal system, a hyper-efficient filter that can process lethal toxins. The neuroglottis is woven into the back of his throat, allowing him to taste and identify chemicals by simply touching his tongue to a surface. The Becher's gland is inserted near his salivary glands, which will soon produce a corrosive, acidic venom. He is made to spit on plasteel plates, his handlers measuring the time it takes to burn through. And then, with great ceremony, come the most sacred implants of all, the progenoid glands. One is placed in his neck, the other deep within his chest cavity. These are the future of the chapter. Within these two priceless organs, the aspirant's own body will cultivate new gene seed, a tithe that will be paid upon his death. The neck gland will be ready for harvest in 5 years, the chest gland in 10. Their successful implantation is the moment the aspirant is no longer just a subject, but a vessel for the chapter's own immortality. The final procedure is the most invasive, the true marriage of flesh and war gear. The black carapace. This is not an organ, but a synthetic membrane of neuroreceptive black plastic. The aspirant is strapped down, fully conscious. His skin is peeled back from his entire torso, front and back in long, bloody flaps. The sheets of the carapace are laid directly onto his ribs and muscle, where medical servitors staple and bond it into place. The worst part is the connection. Dozens of neural jacks are painstakingly fused to his spinal cord and major nerve bundles. He feels every connection being made, a series of electric jolts that light up his nervous system like a string of firecrackers. When it is over, his skin is sutured back into place over the artificial shell. He is complete, a living weapon, his body now little more than a biological chassis, ready and waiting to be plugged into a suit of power armor. The body is complete, but the weapon is not yet forged. An aspirant's physical transformation, as horrific as it is merely the construction of the hardware. Now, the chapter must install the operating system. This is the psycho-indoctrination, the systematic and total annihilation of the child who once was, so that a space marine can be born in his place. It begins in the hypno-indoctrination chambers, where the aspirant is strapped into a cerebral conditioning rig, his eyes clamped open, his ears filled with auditory drivers. For days, sometimes weeks on end, he is subjected to a relentless torrent of psychoactive stimuli. Flashing lights, sonic pulses, and subliminal data streams are fired directly into his brain. He is forced to memorize every verse of the Codex Astartes, every battle honor of his chapter, every name in a 10,000-year lineage of heroes. The conditioning is not gentle. It is a brutal assault designed to overwrite, to bury, to erase. The boy's personal memories, the warmth of his mother's hand, the taste of his first meal, the face of his childhood friend, are targeted like malware. They are drowned out by the litanies of hate, the catechisms of loyalty, and the glorious, bloody history of his new brotherhood. Some chapters, like the Ultramarines, are ruthlessly thorough, scrubbing the slate clean. Others, like the Space Wolves, allow more of the original personality to remain, believing it adds to their ferocity. But in all cases, the boy's mind is broken down and reassembled into a tool for the Imperium. With his memory compromised, his fear is next to be destroyed. Fear is a mortal weakness, a useless instinct that makes a soldier hesitate. A Space Marine cannot hesitate. The chaplains achieve this through exposure therapy so extreme, it borders on sadism. Aspirants are locked in rooms with captured Xenos monstrosities, their animal terror just inches away. They are forced to hold chaos artifacts that whisper promises and threats into their minds, their sanity fraying with every passing second. Some are subjected to controlled, minute-long exposures to the raw psychic energies of the warp, an experience that shatters the minds of most men. Many aspirants do not survive this phase with their sanity intact. They are left as gibbering, mindless wrecks, carted away to the chapter's dungeons. Those who endure, however, emerge fundamentally altered. The neural pathways that generate terror have been burned out, cauterized by sheer, overwhelming force. Where fear once lived, there is now only cold analysis or righteous fury. Next, his emotions are scoured. A Space Marine is not meant to love, to grieve, or to feel joy in any way that might compromise his duty. These are liabilities, openings for corruption and weakness. Through chemical treatments and further hypnotherapy, the aspirant's capacity for these feelings is cauterized. They aren't entirely removed. That would be impossible. But they are buried so deep beneath layers of doctrine and duty that they might as well not exist. The boy who once dreamed of glory and feared the dark is reshaped into a being who can only process two primary emotional states: the cold satisfaction of a mission accomplished and the burning rage of a righteous warrior. The chapter does not see this as a tragedy. It is a necessary refinement. Finally, he is brought into the cult of his specific chapter. He is no longer just becoming a soldier. He is becoming an initiate in a 10,000-year-old mystery religion. A Blood Angels aspirant is forced to confront the specter of the Black Rage and the Red Thirst, the genetic curse of his bloodline. A Dark Angels neophyte is sworn to oaths of secrecy he cannot possibly comprehend, learning that his brothers will kill to protect secrets he is not yet worthy to know. A space wolf must learn to master the beast that lurks within the Canis helix, to ride the edge of savagery without falling into it. By the time the process is over, the person who walked into the fortress monastery is dead. His memories are gone. His fears are gone. His loves are gone. His very identity has been methodically unmade and replaced with a new one. Battle brother. If, by some impossible miracle, his parents were to see him now, they would not recognize their son, and not just because of the giant transhuman body. They would look into his eyes and find nothing of the child they raised. The person they knew has been executed, and a living weapon now wears his face. If you thought the standard process was a monolithic nightmare, you'd be wrong. The creation of a Space Marine is not a standardized industrial process. It is a dark art, and each chapter is an artist with its own grotesque style. The basic 19 implants are the foundation, but on that foundation, each bloodline builds its own unique cathedral of suffering. For the Blood Angels, the horror takes a deeply personal turn. After the first organs are implanted, their aspirants are not sent to training cages. They are sealed within a golden sarcophagus, a claustrophobic tomb, where they will spend an entire year in total isolation. Their only sustenance is a nutrient fluid, infused with the blood of their Primarch, Sanguinius. As they drift in the darkness, they do not sleep. They dream. They are flooded with the genetic memories of their father, culminating in the single most traumatic event in Imperial history: Sanguinius's death at the hands of the arch-traitor Horus. Most go utterly insane, consumed by a spectral bloodlust known as the Red Thirst. Those who emerge are forever haunted, their souls stained by a tragedy 10,000 years old. The Space Wolves of Fenris reject such gilded torment for something far more primal. Their process begins when an aspirant drinks from the cup of Wolfen, a chalice containing the raw, untamable essence of their Primarch's gene seed, the Canis Helix. It triggers a transformation so violent, it kills most boys on the spot. Those who survive are not coddled, their bodies contorting, their minds howling with newfound bestial fury. They are cast out into the frozen death sleet of Fenris. There, they are hunted by their future brothers, the Blood Claws, in a lethal game of survival. They must master the wolf that now lives inside them, or be consumed by it, becoming the tragic, monstrous Wolfen, neither man nor marine, lost forever to the beast. Then you have the Iron Hands, for whom the flesh is not a gift, but a sin. Their aspirants are taught from day one that their organic bodies are a point of failure. The transformation process is not merely about adding organs, it is about subtraction. Healthy, living limbs are methodically amputated and replaced with cold, efficient bionics. An aspirant might watch his own arm being sawn off, only to feel the phantom sensation of his nerves being spliced into whirring steel and piston. This isn't a repair after injury, it is a doctrine. By the time he is a full Marine, he may be more machine than man, a walking testament to the belief that humanity is a weakness to be purged. The Dark Angels offer a different kind of horror, one of the mind. Their aspirants are not just turned into soldiers, they are initiated into a conspiracy. They are sworn to oaths of secrecy they cannot yet understand, learning that their chapter, the First Legion, harbors a shame so profound it has defined their existence for millennia. They learn of the fallen, the half of their legion that turned traitor, and the unforgiving hunt that has consumed them ever since. This truth is not given freely. It is dripped into them, piece by piece, with each rank they attain, each new oath binding their soul tighter. An aspirant who shows even a hint of indiscretion, a tendency to talk too much, simply vanishes. And for those who fell to chaos, the process became a vile parody. A Death Guard aspirant isn't just implanted, he is infected. During surgery, he is deliberately blessed with Nurgle's plagues, his body becoming a vessel for disease. The pain of transformation is compounded by the endless, bubbling agony of rot and decay. He doesn't learn to overcome pain, he learns to worship it as a holy gift from the plague god. What crawls from the apothecarian is no longer human in any recognizable sense. It is a bloated, leaking engine of pestilence, its armor fused to its festering body, a walking plague bomb ready to share its gifts with the galaxy. Golden sarcophagi, frozen hunts, systematic butchery, or paranoid secrecy. The methods are different, but the result is always the same. Each chapter has perfected its own way to kill a child, to annihilate a human being, and build a weapon from what remains. The unique horrors of each chapter are just brushstrokes on a much larger, darker canvas. To understand the true cost of creating a Space Marine, you have to pull back from the individual screaming on the table and look at the horrifying mathematics of the Imperium itself. This is the arithmetic of suffering on a galactic scale. A standard Space Marine chapter has 1,000 battle brothers. To maintain that number against the constant attrition of a galaxy at war, they must recruit constantly. But the process is designed to fail. The trials kill most aspirants before they ever see a needle. The surgeries kill most of those who survive the trials. Psychological conditioning breaks the minds of others. Of every 100 boys selected, perhaps one will survive to become a full Marine. 1 in 100. This means that for a single chapter of 1,000 warriors, 100,000 children had to be fed into the machine. 100,000 boys taken from their homes, put through agony, and discarded when their bodies or minds failed. Multiply that by the 1,000 or more chapters scattered across the Imperium, and the number becomes an atrocity beyond reckoning. Over 10 millennia, the creation of the Emperor's Angels has cost the lives of hundreds of millions of children. An entire civilization of stolen sons, sacrificed not on a battlefield, but in sterile apothecarians and on brutal training grounds. This ghastly equation is made worse by the gene seed crisis. This sacred material, the very essence of a chapter, is not infinite. It is a fading echo of the Primarchs. With every battle brother who falls before his progenoid glands can be harvested, a piece of that legacy is lost forever. For chapters with unstable genetics, like the Blood Angels or Space Wolves, the rejection rate is even higher, their gene stock burning itself out with every failed aspirant. This creates a terrifying desperation. Chapters facing extinction will lower their standards, recruiting from populations with lower compatibility, knowing full well it means the death toll will climb. They will accept a 99.9% failure rate if it means the chapter survives. On some worlds, this calculus has shaped entire societies. There are planets whose only purpose, their sole imperial tithe, is to produce children. These are not worlds of industry or agriculture. They are human farms. Generations are bred for genetic purity and physical resilience, their lives dedicated to creating raw material for the local chapter. To be a parent on such a world is a unique kind of hell. You pray your son is not strong enough, not fast enough, not brave enough to be chosen. The children who are taken are the fortunate ones. They are given a chance at glory. The true unfortunates are those who survive, left behind, to breed the next generation of sacrifices. And who oversees this endless production line of death? The apothecaries. They are not doctors sworn to do no harm. They are biological engineers optimizing a process. To them, the aspirant on the table is not a child. He is a vessel, a test subject. They record every spasm, every seizure, every catastrophic organ failure with cold, scientific detachment. A boy's body might tear itself apart as his muscles outgrow his skeleton, and the apothecary simply makes a note. Biscopia over secretion. Subject expired. His body is then rendered for any useful biological material, and the next aspirant is wheeled in. They are not cruel. Cruelty requires emotion. They are simply efficient. This is the central, amoral truth of the Imperium. No one considers this process evil. It is necessary. The alternative is the victory of chaos, the consumption of humanity by tyrannids, the enslavement by necrons. Faced with extinction, the Imperium has decided that the lives of millions of children are an acceptable price for the warriors who can stand against the darkness. This is not a tragedy they mourn. It is a transaction they have made over and over for 10,000 years. The machine that builds Space Marines runs on the pain of children, and it will never stop. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, the only thing more horrific than the cost of survival is the cost of failure. The process is over. The screaming has stopped. A young man, barely 18 but aged a century by pain, stands before his new skin. He takes the first step, and the power armor receives him. It is not something he wears. It is something he becomes. For the first time, the black carapace awakens. Neural sockets fire, connecting his spine to a war machine. The world explodes in his senses. He feels the plasteel and ceramite as his own flesh, the thrum of the power pack as a second and third heartbeat. Strength, not of muscle but of pistons and fiber bundles, floods his limbs. He can see in the dark, hear a heartbeat across a courtyard, and process tactical data faster than a mortal mind can form a thought. In that one, glorious, terrible moment, every agony, every scar, every moment of terror seems like a fair price. The child who was strapped to that table is gone, and a demigod stands in his place. But this is the final lie of the transformation. He is not a demigod. He is a tool, optimized for a single function and utterly barren in every other respect. The thing that stands in that armor is no longer human. It has been hollowed out. Its capacity for love, for peace, for simple joy surgically excised and replaced with doctrines of hate and catechisms of war. It will never know the warmth of a family, the comfort of a quiet life, or the taste of a meal eaten for pleasure. It has traded the infinite, messy potential of a human soul for the rigid, perfect function of a weapon. This is not an enhancement of humanity. It is an annihilation of it, so that something purpose-built for slaughter can be constructed from the remains. This new existence is eternal, and that is its greatest curse. A Space Marine can live for centuries, even millennia, if he is skilled and fortunate. The boy who was taken from his tribe at age 10 might still be fighting 500 years later. He will have seen stars die and worlds burn. He will have outlived civilizations. He will have killed more living things than he could ever count, his hands forever stained with the blood of men, aliens, and demons. And through it all, the ghost of that 10-year-old boy will be trapped inside, his memories suppressed but never truly gone, a silent witness to a half-millennium of unrelenting violence. The mind, even one engineered for war, was not meant to endure this. And yet, this is the terrible genius of the Imperium. The Space Marines do not see themselves as victims. They see themselves as the chosen. Their suffering was not trauma. It was a holy sacrament. The loss of their humanity was not a tragedy. It was a blessed transcendence. They have been elevated, granted the strength to stand against the darkness that would consume mankind. They believe this with an absolute, unshakable faith that has been burned into their very neurons. And because they believe it, they are effective. Whether their faith is a divine truth or merely a useful lie is a question the Imperium has no time to ask. The weapon works. That is all that matters. And so the cycle continues. At this very moment, on a feral world or in a hive spire, a child is being chosen. He looks up at the towering figure in power armor, not with fear, but with awe. He dreams of glory, of becoming one of the Emperor's angels. He has no idea what awaits him. He doesn't know that he is not a candidate, but raw material. He will be fed into the machine, and he will almost certainly die. In the trials, on the surgical table, or in the hypno chambers. His name will be forgotten before his body is cold. This is the final horrifying truth. The creation of a space marine is not cruel, because cruelty implies malice. There is no malice here, only a cold, desperate necessity. The true revelation is that it works. The Imperium of man has survived for 10,000 years because it was willing to make this transaction. It endures because millions of its sons died screaming so that a few 100,000 could become monsters strong enough to defend it. This is not a justification. It is simply a fact of survival in the 41st millennium. The narrative returns to where it began. A child, strapped to a table. The hum of the apothecarian is the only song he will ever know. His screams echo off the stone, a single note in a chorus that has been singing for 10,000 years. And the machine continues its sacred, monstrous work. It must. There is no other way.